Welcome to the monthly podcast, The Wealth of Generations. If you like to build true wealth for generations, this podcast is for you.
Hi. Mark. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. Thank you for the opportunity.
My pleasure. I've been listening to some of your episodes and just kind of getting a bit about you and so forth, but maybe share a bit about you, your podcast, kind of where you'd like to take our conversation today.
That's right. I have 10 questions that I prepared that I would love to talk to you about. And also, of course, I would like to learn more about your book that you wrote and all the other adventures you're going with media, YouTube. That's really, I'd like to, maybe point that out a little bit because I think it's very valuable for people to look at. I listened to some of your YouTube talks and podcasts, and it's really great to find somebody like you who wants to look at the financial and the economy a little bit from a different angle. So that's what I would like to learn from you today. And so what I would for today for the podcast, I suggest we just get to know each other a little bit. And then after that, we just, go on these 10 questions. And I'm sure that we will find a lot of, discussion points and go back and forth on many of them.
Well, first of all, thank you again for the opportunity. You may or may not need this, but if you'd like it, let me put in the chat here a one sheet, which includes a bio. If you'd like to read that, you don't have to. You don't have to. It also has some topics or questions. If you'd prefer, you're welcome to use the 10 questions you've already written. I just wanted to make sure you knew that this resource was yours to use if you want it. So that's yours. And then also, I love your idea of the wealth of generations. I guess, and I've listened to some of the episodes where it sounds like it was sort of reading the book.
Yes.
Some of those episodes, yeah. So I love it. I work and deal in strategies that really lend itself to that strategy as well, where folks can put in pennies and leave behind dollars. Let's put it in that way, those terms. And I agree with you. I think perpetual family generational wealth is a system that can be incredible, and it's fraught with mistakes that people can make if they're not careful. So happy to chat with you about that today.
Oh, okay. Yes. Maybe we should add that question. What do you think about generational wealth? And you just answered it basically.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, I'd be curious. One more question before we get started. Who is your audience? How can I make sure I'm speaking directly to them?
Good question. I think I have a very great LinkedIn audience. That's where most of my, relationships exist. So let me see your bio. So I'm just going to read it off. We are all in the banking business. That's an interesting statement. Just on the wrong side of the desk. I love that quote. Or did you come up with it?
I guess so. I guess, creativity is just forgetting your sources. So I'm sure I've heard something like it somewhere. But yeah, I believe I've coined the phrase.
I think this is a great statement. It's actually puts a lot in a nutshell. We are all in the banking business. It's capital. Capital is what makes the money move around, the world move around. So, So Mark Willis, right? Is that Bruce Willis? Is that the same?
Yeah, just the same. Yeah. I share. I don't think I'm related directly, but I guess we share a similar barber. But other than that, yeah.
Yes.
And how do you pronounce your first name?
Ingemar.
Ingemar. Great. Thank you.
So Mark Willis is a man of a mission to help and think differently about your money, your economy, and your future. I love that. After graduating with 6 figures of student debt, loan debt, and many people can relate to that, and discovering a way to turn his debt into real wealth, as he watched everybody lose their retirement savings and home equity in 2008. Yes, I was about to ask you about 2008. He knew that he needed to find more predictable way to meet his financial objectives and those in his clients. Exactly. I love that. We are all prone to financial crashes and we want to make sure we're not, at the end of the stick, so to say. Mark is a certified financial planner, a 3-time #1 best-selling author, the owner of Lake Growth Financial Services and a financial firm in Chicago, Illinois, and co-host of Not Your Average Financial Podcast. I listened to some of your podcasts. Brilliant. Over the years, he has helped hundreds of his clients take back control of their financial future and build their business with proven tax-efficient financial solutions and unknown to most financial gurus. He has become known as Not Your Average Financial Planner. Yes, tax planning is as important as financial planning in general. And then some sample topics are life after debt, better than debt-free. Debt is a big issue. Yes, I'm glad that's very high on your list. A lot of people use debt, are over indebted, and also have bad debt. Maybe you could talk about that today. That would be great. How to fire your real estate banker for good. Interesting. How to grow wealth by paying your taxes. Buy back your debt using the Lake Growth debt snowbank method. That's the first time I hear it. Please explain what that is. I'm curious. 3 sides to every Bitcoin. How to profit in crypto, no matter what. Yep. Well, that's a big topic. We could talk about that just in several sessions. And then income maximization sample topics. How to grow your retirement savings on market upswings without losing a penny in down years. Yeah. Yes. And that's my big concern, that a lot of people lose so much because the markets go down and that's all they have. How to make sure, even in your if you run out of money, you never run out of income. Very interesting. Very good topic. How to get paid every day for the rest of your life. Is that passive income? Quick question. Yep. Yes, very good. Love it. Elevators that only go up. Proven retirement strategies, rate of return versus rate of income. The whole concept, rate of return and rate of income, I'd love to hear more about that. That's exactly how I have seen this all my life, and it's not easy to pull this together, but there's methods to it. And then there's a lot of information about your average financial questions. If you can address that, I'm not going to read all of them, and retirement questions. I think retirement questions are questions that go very, very tightly with the wealth of generations. Because what is your retirement? Is it just a bucket full of money that you withdraw every year, and then before you die, or hopefully not, you run out of the money, and then what? What's your plan? So with that, I think we have a very, very qualified and financial person that can help us identify some very, very crucial elements in financial planning that most people don't think about. So with that, I will just ask you the first question about the student loan. You mentioned that in your book and in your talks a lot, which I think a lot of people are interested in. There's student loan forgiveness, which you shouldn't count on, I guess. And people also run very easily into this scenario where they take a loan to actually go to college. And my son, we're talking now about college. He's 17 and he's soon up for college, and we're thinking about, well, how do we finance it? Which college are we going to pick? Are we picking a very expensive one and take a student loan, or just a cheaper one and just pay for it in cash? So all these questions, that will be my first real relevant or a timely question now with all that. So what do you think about the student loan situation, and how can you to turn that into wealth? Turn your career, that where you make the money with income, and then pay the student loan back. So what's your take on that?
Well, so yeah, again, it's a pleasure to be on the show today. The reality of college planning has a long history to it, and the pace by which the price of an education has actually outpaced inflation by double for about 35, 40 years now. So we've had double the rate of inflation, which, you know, is especially severe this year as we're experiencing very high inflation on its own. But tuition, school books, programs, housing, everything for college is now becoming more costly. And at the same time, the degree is becoming less valuable. So when the price goes up, but the value goes down, at some point, somebody's going to say, no, thanks. I mean, this is a classic bubble. You know, we can go back to the tulip mania in the Dutch Empire of the 1600s, where people were buying tulip bulbs, and the price of the tulip bulb was becoming more and more expensive. They were getting rare, exotic tulip bulbs and trading, and it was sort of a preliminary stock exchange, actually, until at one point, and you're probably familiar with this story, the price of a tulip bulb actually exceeded the value of a home just for one tulip bulb, until somebody decided that the price exceeded the value. And then within about a week or so, the entire thing came collapsing down. This has happened not just with tulips, but with .com stock, with real estate, with crypto. The list goes on and on. Irrational exuberance seems to be baked into the human experience, and that's no more true than with the college education. Where is it written? You know, where is it written on stone tablets that we have to send our kids to college in the first place for them to be successful in their life? You know, I think there were plenty of very famous, very wealthy Rothschilds and folks that are the Rockefeller family. Maybe they went to college, maybe they didn't. But what really was valuable was the principles, the values, and the money that the progenitor, the ancestors, were passing on to their next generation, which is, you know, ties right in with the wealth of generations. It's not just about preparing a bunch of money so your kids can go to college. In fact, it's not just about preparing a bunch of money so you can leave it to your kids when you graduate life, you know, when you pass away. You don't just want to prepare a bunch of money for the kids, you want to prepare your kids for the money. And maybe that includes a college degree. Maybe it doesn't. There are a number of ways you can prepare your child for the big, crazy world out there that doesn't involve 4 years getting their arts and crafts degree and spending $200,000 at a college. I just spoke with a couple. They are both doctors, and they're making an okay income, 6 figures each of them, but they have a total of $800,000 of combined student loan debt. And that's just the beginning. Now they are behind 10 years, 20 years in their life, you know, by having that kind of debt. And is their nice doctor degree really, really a benefit to them? Could they have invested in some real estate and maybe done better? I hate to say, because I want a good doctor that's gone to college. Believe me, if there's anybody who really needs a college degree, it's the STEM fields. That I want my bridge to have been designed by someone who got a degree in engineering. Okay, I want my doctor who's operating on my pancreas, whatever, to have gone to college to learn about operations. So I want colleges to continue. I just think we want to think critically about the price and the value. Think of that college not as a entitlement to your child. Don't think of it as a requirement for them to be successful. I've met too many people who bypassed college altogether and are doing just fine, thank you very much. And their parents smartly, I'll tell you a quick story. Parents decided to go ahead and bypass the college degree for their child. They looked at their child, the way his spirit was, the way his demeanor was. He was more of an entrepreneur, less of a sit down and take notes kind of guy. And so they put money into real estate for 4 years, the same cost that his tuition would have been. They used it to fund real estate. And he began to become a landlord, a property manager, a business owner over the 4 years that he would have otherwise gone to sit in a classroom and taken notes on, you know, whatever kind of frou-frou degree he might have gotten. And now after 4 years, he has 4 properties. He has a lot of experience in running that business. and he's off to the races and creating passive income and wealth for his future children and the parents, their future grandchildren as well. So that's a long answer, but that's sort of my perspective when it comes to college. I'm not cold on the idea, but at least I'm cool on the idea of default sending every kid to college.
Well, I love your answer. You covered a lot of ground there, a lot of topics that people talk about or don't talk about, but at least think about maybe. One thing that always comes to mind, I'm from Germany. You hear my accent. Born in Sweden, but grew up in Germany, and I went to college in Germany as well. And it's free there. When I say that I financed my own college, I financed my room and living, not the college itself. Now they have about $100 a semester as a fee, $100. And that's just a fee. So in Germany, the education system is very different. Sweden as well, and Europe mostly. Do you think that in America, the whole college industry, let's call it what it is, college industry, do you think it is a college industry or education industry, or did we go too far in America, or is there anything we could change?
Well, I'm no prognosticator, and I'm certainly not a politician. I'm just a personal financial planner. I work as a certified financial planner and work one-on-one with clients on their personal financial strategies. So to work on a macro level is just conjecture. But I will tell you that when a government subsidizes a program, the price will go up. That's just the default. If you know you have a guaranteed buyer, let's say that you decided to open a grocery store in a town that had no other grocery stores. So everybody is a captive customer at your grocery store. What would you do if you were a conniving, not a kind person, but a conniving business owner? You would raise the price on everybody to the absolute limit just so that you could squeeze as much out of them as possible. Now, I'm not saying you would do that, but generally speaking, that would be the business owner's decision would be to raise the price because he has no competition. She has no competition. And when there is a guaranteed buyer, the subsidized student loan programs started around the same time that the price of college started to go up. So what would happen if we made college free, quote unquote free? The price of college would continue to go up. If we forgive a bunch of student loans, for example, if we make college free, the price of administrators, professors, and more, I expect the market dynamics to say, hey, you know what? The government's a guaranteed buyer of our product and service called a college degree. Let's raise the price because, what's it to the student? The student's going to go ahead and say, sure, let me in. And the parents are going to see it dispersed among the population, and the government is underwriting the entire program. This is maybe one reason why the cost of college has gone up. And what's interesting is we blame capitalism when it was the subsidizing of that degree that and the meddling of the government in the private university system that caused those prices to go up in the first place. It's just my idea. I'm just a lowly peon as a certified financial planner looking at market dynamics. But if you're asking me, like, why is there a price discrepancy here? Why is it why did the cost of Princeton for 60 years stay basically level with the cost of inflation? And then right when the government started to subsidize student loans, did it start to double and even triple the rate of inflation? That's just at least a coincidence, if not a causality. That's just my own opinion.
Thank you. Yeah, this is a very complex question. Absolutely. I don't want to delve too much into it because it doesn't really matter. What matters is what you said before, is that you have a choice. You can get either a very expensive or whatever expensive, education, get a certificate, or build your own practice and experience in business. And I think that's where we should really focus on, because we live in America, and I love the idea that we can actually have opportunities in America to do all these businesses that we want to do. There's limitations in other countries, and so we should appreciate that opportunity more. And that's exactly where you're going with. We should look at with the banker again, we should be on the other side of the desk. You really think about how can we make the system, or how can we build wealth? And there are so many ways to do that. With your example with that son who didn't go to college but created, and is he happier? Probably because he has a sense of purpose in his life, and more than just going to a job that he, more than 50%, I read statistics of employees hate their jobs.
Yeah.
Or at least like they don't like it. I don't know what the statistics exactly says, but that gives you, it's just a warning sign. Most people don't really like their jobs. So thank you. I think we could talk forever about this whole education thing, because I think that education is very important. And to me, education doesn't only it's not only the knowledge that you get about a certain topic, but also I call it morals, mind, and money. So what we are learning in school is mind, so the knowledge, right? But what about morals and habits? How do we build all that up? Because if you don't have that, nothing will stick. All the knowledge that we learn goes poof,
That's right.
And then of course the money as well. If you're a gambler having low morals, wasting your money, good money goes away as well.
That's right.
Right. I have another question. So when you meet with clients, you start with a conversation about their situation, and how's your approach to financial planning with your clients, and what sets your approach apart from other financial advisors? It's a little bit of pitch for you, but I think it's important because you have a message. What is it?
Well, I do. Thank you. And I work with clients all over the country. I work with real estate investors, business owners, even NFL Super Bowl champions. But most people I work with just want more control, more certainty, more confidence in their financial future. I feel like traditional financial planning has failed us for the last 40 or 50 years, since 1974 approximately. There's been a real push into amateur retail investment products, things like stocks, bonds, mutual funds, qualified plans like IRAs and 401ks. It's a surprise to a lot of people to realize that the 401k is a relatively recent phenomenon. In fact, the first 401k was issued in 1981, which means that as of this recording, it's only about 42 years old, which means that it's not even old enough to retire yet. If it was a person, if the 401k was a person, it's too young to retire. That's how young this experiment is at making us all a nation of speculators in this thing called Wall Street. Now, is it a coincidence that the Wall Street numbers have gone up dramatically as the baby boomers have pumped money into qualified plans that are based in the stock market? And I would also wonder what's going to happen to that same stock market as boomers begin to retire en masse and have to suck all that money out of the system at the same time. So, as of this recording, about 10,000 baby boomers retire every single day. And as they start to take money out of their 401ks to spend on groceries and grandkids and Disneyland or whatever, yachts or whatever, that's going to have an effect on that, retail investment space, the stocks, the bonds, the mutual funds.
I wonder how many people thought about that. That's a completely new thought. Wow. Yes, you're right.
Well, it's certainly who's going to be the buyer for all these stocks that we're all trying to rush out the door and sell as we spend at the grocery store.
Because of that.
Yep. So again, where is it written that we have to put our money into things that we can't control, which are taxing us in the future when tax rates might likely be higher, that may or may not solve the problem, which for most people is, how do I, one, make sure I always have an income no matter what, guaranteeing me a paycheck for as long as I live. That's something that we used to have with pensions, but are less common today. And then two, how can we leave our children and the causes and charities we care about most, how can we leave them in a better place than when we found them? Which I think is part of the raison d'etre, right? It's part of the reason for existence, is to leave the world a better place than when we came into it. At least that would be a definition of a successful life for me. So how do we do this in a way that doesn't take any unnecessary risk, with our finances. And the key aha moment that I had as a young adult and getting into financial planning was, and this is such a simple sentence, but it had a profound impact on me when I first thought about it, which is, hey, your money acts differently when you put it in different places. So where your money lives makes it act different. And so few people, including myself, I mean, I can definitely see myself as the culprit here. I never really thought about what I want my money doing for me. I was simply told, get your 401k. Simply told, get that credit card. Simply told, get into 6 figures of student loan debt and just to be an adult. I was simply told to get the regular workaday job. And then hopefully, prayerfully, you can get out of that job when you're 69 years old and barely holding on by your fingernails. That was sort of the download I had been lied to. And, as a result, I wasted a few years of my life chasing somebody else's plan for my money. But when you sit down and you really write out your own wish list, like if you could just wave a magic wand and say, hey, you know what? If I could wave a magic wand and say, here's exactly what I want my money doing for me, here's the characteristics, here's the attributes, here's the functions of money that do what I want it to do, then you can be the one in charge of your money rather than your money being in charge of you.
Give us some examples of that. So you say don't do stock, do stock market, but there are 5 asset classes, right? Securities, commodities, real estate, business, and what's the first one? Cash, money market, right? So you have money in the bank. So how does it do different in these different asset classes? You say money acts differently in different classes. So what do you tell your clients? So if they say they have all the money in the stock market, you do what?
Well, I would start with that thought exercise. One, because it's free and it's simple, and it only takes 10, 20 minutes, and we can have a little fun with that right now if you'd like. So rather than nouns like cash or real estate, or let's put the nouns aside and let's focus on adjectives and functionality. So what are some characteristics, some adjectives that you'd want your money to have? Here's an example to get us started. I'd want it to be liquid and accessible. What good is money if I can't get access to it? So liquid, accessible, easy to get without a bunch of prohibited transactions, a bunch of penalties, a bunch of red tape to get my money. I want my money and I want to be able to access my money. So that's maybe one. Another one might be passive income. I'd want it to be able to generate for me a stream of income that I would never be able to outlive or run out of when I need it. When I can no longer work, that's when I really want my money to be able to produce a stream of income efficiently without a bunch of cause or worry or having to micromanage a bunch of stocks or whatever. So again, passive income, liquidity. I'll throw one more and then I'd love to get, maybe you could chime in and give me some of your wish list too. Again, we're just blue sky thinking here. I'd want it to have a substantial rate of return that, was not putting it into speculative risk, but I wanted it to be aggressive enough to at least keep up with inflation, if not beat inflation. So I'd want a substantial rate of return, accessibility, and passive income. What else would you add to that list?
Well, all these things are desirable, and you want all of it.
Yeah.
Every clients would say, well, yeah, I want all of it. But most clients, I have dealt with a lot of financial advisors as my clients, and I know how they, take in how their clients are, and most people don't even think that it takes a year for them to really develop something what they really want. And when what you just mentioned, all these adjectives about assets, you want all of it. You want it to be, accessible. You want it low risk. It would grow fast. And then the typical question from advisors is, are you risk adverse or are you do you want to take some risk in your investments? That's the first question I always hear. And they say, well, I want no risk and I want a high return. Sure, that's the goal. But how? So I think there's a lot of things, the things you mentioned, and I think the income part is the biggest one. And that's what financial advisors don't really ask you. Because they have, what do you call them? The bonds, bonds, yes, but there's the annuities, right? They sell you annuities. They give you this much income, right? Compared to, and you have to have like 200,000 or something, so to make a dent in the universe in the first place, to put it just in annuities. And so I think the most trickiest question is the income part, and to qualify that a little bit more, what is it? What are you looking for as income, passive income? I call it return from capital, or capital return, basically, instead of passive income, because it is passive, but the point is you want return from capital, not from yourself, right?
Right.
You are the one who brings in the income all your life, but you have to switch that to, the capital works for you, not you for the capital.
That's right.
And that's the crux, I think, that my 2 cents to that, if you ask me. I could add a lot of other adjectives, probably, what capital should do for you, but that's the one thing. And I'm so glad, somebody really points that out specifically and advises people in this kind of fashion. So thank you for that. I think you're doing a lot of service for a lot of your clients, because they will think more, well, you can call it sustainable. I tell you a little story from my family. It's, my father is a mathematician. My mother is a musician, very creative, very intelligent people. But do you think they were able to create wealth for generations? No. We all struggling. We have 3 kids, and everybody is still running in the hamster wheel, to make things. And then, so yeah, I think that was a very good analogy to go away from nouns to, adjectives. What do you want capital for you?
Well, and I would just add to that, wealth for your parents could have been much more than dollar signs or money, more broadly.
Yes.
And the incredible power of abundance can be done. I've actually created a periodic table of abundance, several of which might relate to money. But what about holistic wealth, like your health, your relationships, your spirituality? What about things like your values and transmission of those values to your children? What about your ability to, influence the world for good and charitable causes and more? So as I know, you probably realize too, wealth is a broad word, but it can, in many ways, be important to, one, come up with, what do you want? That's the ultimate outcome here, is to figure out what you want. I mean, I could add a few more just so your audience can continue this thought experiment on their own. How about taxes? Do you want this to be taxable when you pull the money out? Do you want it to be tax-free? How about hidden from, let's say, lawsuits or bankruptcy proceedings? Do you want it to be private when you pass it on to your heirs, or do you want it to be exposed in the courts through probate? These are all questions that I think too few financial planners help folks think through, and we end up just rushing them into a 401k, which is taxable in the future. There's no guarantees. There's no income off of that. See this, and then I'll hush and we can move on to the next piece. How much money do you think you could reasonably expect to take as an income? How much income could you reasonably expect to take out of a 401k if you had, let's say, $1 million, $1 million inside of a 401k, and let's say that you expect to retire and live on it for 30 years? What's the safe amount of money that you could systematically take out of that 401k? $1 million. How much can you safely take out as an income every year without fear of running out of money? Is there a guess? And again, I know I'm putting you on the spot there, but what are your thoughts?
So here's the thing. The question is wrong. So what you're doing, if you have $1 million in stocks and you're taking money out, you're withdrawing, the money goes down over the years, and then you have nothing left, basically, if you live long enough.
Yep.
So that's not called income, in my opinion. That's withdrawals, right?
Yeah. Right.
Unless you have a lot of dividends. Some people have $1 million in stock and they get $100,000 in dividends a year, which that's fine, right? So there's the passive income. But I don't think with $1 million you can make $100,000 a year in dividends.
No, I can't see any. I don't know any stocks that are offering 10% dividends these days. Yeah, maybe 2%, maybe 3%.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that's my answer to that. Am I right there?
Yeah, you're not far off. In fact, there was some studies done by Morningstar and by Dr. Wade Pfau and Dr. Dave Blanchett, These are retirement researchers, and they've concluded that the safe amount of money that gives you a 90% success rate is about 2.5%. 2.5%. That means you could take about $25,000 a year of income out of $1 million portfolio off of your 401k. Now, that's only a 90% success rate. That means if I was like putting that in context, if an airplane company, like an airliner, said that they had a 90% success rate on their airplanes, would you take a flight on that plane?
Yes.
So this is not a guarantee. There's no guarantees on that 401k, except the fees, of course, are guaranteed. But if you get into that 401k and you've got your $1 million, you've got a $25,000 lifestyle you can enjoy off of your $1 million. That's the lifestyle for a millionaire. And oh, by the way, that 25,000 is going to be, it's going to be taxed, right? So after taxes, we're talking maybe 19 grand after tax. This is a $1 million asset that's producing a pathetic 1.9% after tax return. I could find something for you that would do, much better than that without any risk. So, you can do that or you can save half the money for the same amount of income. So where you put your money makes it do different things. And too often, I think folks just rush into where their friends are putting their money because, it's the lemming phenomenon. We basically do what we see other people doing because we think it's wise.
Yeah. That's a big misconception. And that's another question that I prepared. What are some common misconceptions or misunderstandings that you encounter when working with clients on their financial goals? I think this is one misconception. I have $1 million. They don't really know what they have.
And yeah, another one is average returns. Your investment advisor will tell you that you'll get an average return of, give me a number, 7%, 9%, 12%. I've heard all those numbers thrown around over my years. But let me do another experiment with you here. So let's say that you had $10,000 to invest and you put it into an account that was going to do very well this year. So you put $10,000 in, and over the course of the year, it doubled. You got a 100% rate of return. You went from $10,000 to $20,000 in the first year. So far, you're loving this investment. So in year 2, you decide to do it again. And your $20,000 is now invested. Unfortunately, in the second year, it loses half of its value, a negative 50% return. You go from $20,000 back down to your original $10,000. So you started with $10,000, you went up to $20,000, you're back down to $10,000 after 2 years. Do you feel any wealthier at the end of this thought exercise?
With inflation, you're actually less wealthy.
That's true. Yeah, that's very observant. Yeah. But even on just a nominal dollar basis, we have exactly the same we started with, right? So what was our average rate of return there? Folks would say 0, but no, that's not true. The average return was 25%. Yeah. Going up 100% minus 50 divided by 2 is 25%. Did you know that stock accounts, investment accounts, financial planners, the SEC, they all allow for us to advertise average rates of return? So when you hear about the stock market giving you 10% a year for the last 100 years, you're getting a lie. You're just plainly being told a bold-faced lie. And why does this matter? Why does it matter? Well, 1, you cannot spend a rate of return at the grocery store. And 2, you plan under false pretenses to get 8-10%, and then you end up with the real return, which is closer to, by the way, it's closer to 3% over 30 years, according to Dalbar. So if you're expecting 8% and you only get 3%, that's the difference between a successful retirement and having to work at Walmart into your 80s, which is unfortunately the reality of too many Americans these days.
Well, that was a very compelling example of just how sometimes advertising is allowed nowadays. Yep. I know you're looking at your clock or your watch. How is your time look?
I've got another 10 minutes or so. Yeah.
10 minutes?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, we covered a lot of ground. I have so many other things I would like to talk to you about, and maybe we can have a second session one day. But I think I'm so glad we had this interview because you're a very positive person. I love that. And you have, I think, a very important core message, which is, you cannot just look at your return of capital, like how much does the price go up of your stock, right? That's what you look at, but you have to look at the return of income. Like what is it really? So if you have a $1 million asset, right, and you have it all in real estate, and you rent like 4 units, you rent it all out to people, how much money do you get a year? It's probably in the 200,000. So you have a 20% return of, return from a $1 million asset. 20%. It's easy to do. Or you have a good business idea. It's more difficult to start businesses. It's very difficult, actually. 9 out of 10 fail. But you got to try, and you can try more times. Many successful entrepreneurs tried and failed, and that's normal. But it's difficult, yes, and that's why less people do it. But I think financial advisors, and I'm so glad that you try to do that with your clients to make them curious. What's out there? What could they do? And I think it's important not just for this family who wants to build wealth, but also for the entire society. I think we are a society of consumers, which is a great thing for the economy, but unfortunately we get a little bit lazy, in terms of, when you have to work and make a business work, you think in different dimensions. I think this is all what the message we have today is about. And I'm so glad that you pointed so many examples out. I'd love to meet you again and talk about some examples where you had clients and they had like a success story to see, so other people see, oh yeah, I can do that too.
Well, yeah, there's actually, and I won't go into all this time, but as a teaser for that, folks, if you want, listen to or read on the 2 families, the Rockefellers and the Vanderbilts. And you may be familiar with this anecdote, but the Rockefellers and the Vanderbilts were both incredibly wealthy. I mean, we're talking wealthier than even most modern billionaires today. And yet one family has spent it all, gone in 3 generations, like the old phrase, right? Shirt sleeves to shirt sleeves in 3 generations. Whereas the other family it's still an incredible, impressive, philanthropic business family. And there's other families too, like the Rothschilds and more. So where did they go right while the Vanderbilts went wrong? Where's the Vanderbilts today? One of the recent inheritors of the Vanderbilt fortune was Anderson Cooper, a newscaster.
No way.
Yeah, and he's got to work his day job. He didn't have much in the way of an inheritance, so he's still out there working. And so I would much rather your children, your grandchildren, your great-grandchildren say, you know what? We had more of a Rothschild, we had more of a Rockefeller family, and thank God we didn't get a Vanderbilt style family, which lost it all in 3 generations. There's a great quote by Gloria Steinem. I'll wrap it up with this. She says, the wealthy plan for 4 generations, but the poor plan for Saturday night. And so by listening to this show, and everybody give them a 5-star review, listen to this show, consistently plant the seeds in your own heart to think 4 generations into the future, and think about what you want your great-grandchildren to say about you, about how you help change your family tree.
Wonderful. I will put that in writing in our video so people can read about that. And with that, do you want to tell people how they can get a hold of you, websites? I know you have the blog and your website. Is that the best way to contact you?
Yeah, thank you. If what would it feel like, right, to have some of these strategies thought through, carefully considered, being creative about how you want your money to work for you? When everyone else has a plan for your money, you should be sure to have your own plan for yourself so that it's working for you rather than going to work for them. I can help with that. I sit down and work with clients all across the country. The best way to get in touch is probably to have a 15-minute phone strategy session. And you can find my information at kickstartwithmark.com. That's kickstartwithmark.com.
Okay. And then there's a schedule meeting button there so people can click on it. Great. Well, Mark, this is a remarkable meeting, in my opinion, we had today. You covered so much ground. I really hope that people find you more, more even that they already do. I guess you have a lot of clients, and especially NFL player. That's always, these are the worst probably with money, because they have so much money. What do they do with it? It's not easy. 95% of the people would be overwhelmed. And if you have so much money, there's more at stake. So
right.
I'm so glad that you're out there. I will catch up with you over the next weeks, and we will be in touch. With that, Mark, thank you so much for reaching out, and also being on the show today, of course. And any last advice?
No, thank you very much for having me on, and consider the future when making every decision in your financial life and beyond. So thank you.
Yes, perfect. Okay, Mark. Well, take care.
Thank you.
Bye.